I want to thank you for honoring me with the prestigious Golden Laurel. Let's try again. I want to thank you for honoring me with the prestigious Golden Laurel Award. I understand that it is the highest honor that you can give, and some days I really don't feel worthy, but my friends have assured me that perhaps I am. And I know that I am the 21st recipient, and I reviewed a list of some of the prior recipients, and while I did not know all of these distinguished women, a number of them are women that I call my mentors, my role models, and my friends. And those names would include, as my sister friend has said, Katie Loeb Schwab, Peggy Brown, Lois Wells, Joanne Barnett, Beverly Bradley, Kitty Merle Smith Thomas, and both the late Priscilla Payne Hurd and Linnie Fowler. And I admire them all for their service to this community and for their impeccable values and sense of integrity. So I am really most proud and humbled to be considered among them. And I'm proud to be the latest recipient of this award, and I would not have actually imagined that I would be considered for this award, because I was told by Stephanie that this award has traditionally been given to residents of Bethlehem, and additionally, because it's coming on Easter and coming on Passover, I'm going to evoke a comment. And the comment is, Manish Tanaha Laila Hazeh. And that means, why is this night different from all other nights? And that is because you have before you, perhaps your first recipient of the YWCA Award, who is Jewish. So I do want to thank you for extending the honor to me. And in fact, when Stephanie first asked me to serve on the honorary board, I think a lot of people in this room know me as Ilene Wood and Bob's wife, and one would tend to think, given that perhaps this was not the case. So when Stephanie invited me, I said, Stephanie, I don't know if I'm really eligible because I'm not the C in the YWCA. And she assured me that now the YWCA doesn't really stress the Y part or the C part. So therefore, I'll Okay. The Y's mission is to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace and justice and dignity for all. And those are definitely principles that I subscribe to, so I definitely said yes to her kind invitation. And upon further reflection, I realized that factors like race, religion, ethnicity, and gender can profoundly impact who we are and how we're perceived in the world. And these descriptives can cause boundaries between people. But in fact, we are all people, and boundaries can be blurred and eliminated. And things are not exactly always as they seem. Many of you in the room know me, as I said, as Ilene Wood, or the wife of Bob Wood, and very few perhaps in this audience know me as Eileen Sherry Rosenthal Hochberg, who was the person I was when I arrived in the Lehigh Valley. And just to give you a little bit of background, I grew up in Yonkers, New York. My father was a dentist. His name was Bernie Rosenthal. My mom, who was named Gertrude but preferred Trudy, was a stay-at-home mom until after my father passed away when she became a stockbroker. And I married my first husband, whose name was Erwin Hochberg, and we shared 23 wonderful years together before he passed away in 2003. And in other words, I had a whole life before I showed up here in the Lehigh Valley. And essentially, my parents were the first people to introduce me to philanthropy. They were active in local community, various organizations and initiatives. And my first husband, Erwin Hochberg, was also very charitable, but he subscribed to something that I referenced as checkbook charity. And we would pick out causes that we believed in, and we'd write them checks. And I never went to a meeting, never served on a committee, never had any first-hand connection to the organizations we were supporting. And true, I know that treasure isn't one of the important parts of philanthropy, but when I married Bob Wood, I discovered a whole different version of philanthropy. And once again, remember what I said before about things not being as they appear. I met Bob when I lost my husband to cancer, and he had lost his wife, Sarah Kay, to cancer. And we were friends and introduced and spent time together. And as we got closer, he wanted to cook dinner for me because he was a trained chef. And he said, Ilene, I'd love to make your favorite meal. What do you like to eat? And I said, you're safe with any form of shellfish. And he said, well, I guess I have to cook it at your house. And I said, why? And he informed me that he kept kosher. Now, Bob was Protestant. And so I kind of said, huh? And as he explained to me, his late wife had been Jewish, and her two daughters, who he considered his two daughters, were also Jewish, and those two women kept kosher. And even though their mother was gone, he thought it was imperative to keep a kosher home so when his girls came back to visit, they could eat food in his house. And this is no easy enterprise. I mean, my husband taught me the kashrut laws, which is something I as a Jew never knew. And it involves, 2 refrigerators and 3 sets of dishes and silver, and there's a lot to it. And the other unusual thing was that when Bob and I got married, one of the first things he asked me to do is he said, I'd like you to join a temple, because he could not join, he was a Protestant. And I'd never joined a temple from the time I was a child. I'd always kind of, tailgated on my parents or friends. And I said, why do you want to do this? And he said, because I'd like to be able to go to high holiday services with my sister Judy and her husband. So, once again, things not always as they seem. So, as it turns out, Bob got me involved in hands-on philanthropy. And very often we would go to lots of different functions, lots of different types of groups. And very often I would look around and I would have this immediate realization that I was the only Jew in the room. And, that's kind of unusual. I mean, I came from New York and this was not normally the case, but here it did happen with some frequency. But I always prescribe to the fact that people are people. And despite the differences, we really are very much the same. And I've always chosen my friends based upon those principles. And it's often been said about my friends that what they have in common is they have nothing in common. And I selected all of my friends because I love them for who they are and for each of their distinct differences, and I embrace them as my family of choice. And this principle, in fact, once again, continues to move forward in that the gentleman that I'm now spending time with, sharing my life with, his name is Ray Starner, and I found him in a somewhat unusual way. I was scrolling around on Match.com one evening, and I plugged the word philanthropy into the search engine because this was something very important to me. And lo and behold, one name popped out, and it's that name. So what I can say is that back in the day, Bob was described as the most Jewish Christian anyone had ever met. And I sometimes call myself the most Christian Jew anyone has ever met. And I continue that forward with Ray because Ray's a Protestant, same denomination as Bob. And as much as we attend temple together, we also attend church together. So basically, to wrap this all up, because the evening's getting really long, I'm really proud of the work that I've provided for lots of organizations in this community, because I love giving back to this community that has done so much for me. I'm an author by trade, but the volunteer activities really kept me afloat emotionally after I lost Bob. It gave my life a direction and a purpose, and I now know I have received far more than I have given. For in the process, I have met all of you, my friends, and for that I will be eternally grateful. So thank you all for enriching my life with your friendship and for honoring me with the Golden Laurel Award.
How are you doing that?